Hey everybody, today I wanted to talk about headaches and how the VA rates headaches. It's actually kind of a complicated topic, and part of the reason for that is that the VA uses some weird terminology and doesn't quite define the terms well, and it gets a little complicated. But let's start at the basics. Headaches can be service-connected in two ways, right? They can be either a primary condition, you developed headaches while in service, and those headaches continue today, and that might be a primary or direct service-connected headache. Now, they can also be secondary to certain things. They can be secondary to, say, a TBI. So if you're applying for traumatic brain injury and you have headaches, you might want to actually specifically mention on the form when you're applying for the benefit that you have headaches. They can also be caused by other conditions like depression and PTSD. And headaches can also be caused by things like orthopedic issues, right? So you might have a cervical spine or like neck issue, right? So, that might be traveling up and creating tension headaches. And by the way, I'm also talking about migraines. So headaches and migraines are interchangeable for the purpose of this discussion. Now, when you apply for these headaches, and assuming everything goes right, the VA is going to send you to a C&P exam, and part of that is determining service connection. And that service connection is done either directly, as I just said, or secondarily, as I just said. But then they have to do what's called a disability benefits questionnaire, where they determine the severity of the headaches. And the severity of the headaches is where it gets really difficult. Headaches can be rated at 0, 10, 30, or 50%. Based on the frequency and the severity of the headache itself. Now, that doesn't sound too complicated, right? Well, here's the problem. The VA uses terms that aren't really well defined, or at least not defined in the DBQ forms, the Disability Benefits Questionnaire, or even in the Code of Federal Regulations, right? So here's what I mean. If you, and pardon me, I'm reading this off the screen because if I don't read this off the screen, I am going to forget it. So let's start at the bottom. If you have a less frequent attacks, now this means less than every other month. So every 3 months you're having a headache attack, you might be rated as 0%. Now, if you have a characteristic prostrating attack averaging once every other month over the past several months, you get a 10% rating, or you should get a 10% rating. If you have a characteristic prostrating attack occurring on average once every month over the last several months, that might get you up to a 30% rating. Now, to get a 50% rating, you have to get very frequent, completely prostrating attacks and prolonged attacks productive of severe economic inadaptability. Now, as an attorney, right, here's what I do. What does prostrating mean? I'm looking at all these words and I go, prostrating? What does that mean? What does prostrating mean? What does severe economic inadaptability? What does very frequent mean? I don't know. So I might look at the actual Code of Federal Regulations, and believe it or not, it's not in there. I might look at the Disability Benefits Questionnaire. It's not in there either. So the doctors are being asked questions using words that no one really knows. So the courts have actually come up with some definitions for us. Prostrating, now if I look at Webster's, the dictionary, prostrating might mean it causes extreme exhaustion, powerlessness, debilitation, incapacitation with substantial inability to engage in ordinary activities. Now, prostration, if I think about it, that also means just lying down. But in this case, it's not really lying down. The courts have said this really means that you're left powerless, exhausted, unable to engage in ordinary activities. Completely prostrating, which is like the next level up, that is extreme exhaustion or powerlessness with essentially total inability to engage in ordinary activities. Now, the next one is substantial economic inadaptability. Now, this doesn't mean you can't maintain substantial gainful employment. It means that you're missing work because of the headaches, meaning that you have to leave your work. You're missing maybe more than a couple days a year from the job because of these severe headaches. But does not mean incapable of substantial work, right? So like you might still have a job, but it's affecting your job. Now, the problem is they don't really define these for the doctors doing the exams. So the doctors sometimes come up with their own definition. I once had an exam where I reviewed it, and the doctor said, well, they're not prostrating because the veteran doesn't lie down for a long period of time. Okay, but he did have to leave work a lot because of these headaches. So how do we square the circle on that? How do we reconcile those two issues? Well, ultimately, these things often need appeals to get them straight, to sort them out straight. But before you get to the appeal stage, you really want to get the facts straight. And a tip I have for this is that you might want to keep a headache diary. Now, if you're being seen or treated by a neurologist or your primary care physician, they may already tell you to do this. But when you get a headache, you want to write down some things. What caused it? What do you think triggered the headache? What do you think helped the headache? Did you have to go into a dark room, lie down, take a nap for 2 hours? Did you have to leave work and go somewhere dark and quiet in your house? Did you have to take ibuprofen or Imitrex or whatever these medications are? You might also want to think about, mentioning these to the doctor, how often they're happening, right? But this headache diary, if you bring it with you to the claim and pension exam, and you directly submit it to the VA, where you're proving to them through your own logbook that you're having these crushing headaches that cause you to leave work at least twice a month, well, that gets us a lot of the way there. It doesn't solve all the problems, and it's not going to guarantee success. Because a lot of times, you just have to appeal these issues to get the VA to properly follow the rules and the definitions as set by the higher courts. So I tell people, hey, start with this, start with the headache log. It's a good idea anyway, so that you know to avoid the triggers and you know what works. But also it helps prove the severity of the headaches over time. Now, if you've applied for headaches and you've been denied, or you've received a low rating on headaches, reach out to us. Don't wait to appeal that. You want to appeal that as soon as possible, because generally speaking, you only have 1 year from the date of the decision to appeal that decision before you have to reopen it and you lose your effective date. It's a mess. So don't sit on the claim. The VA gets these wrong all the time. All the time. Reach out to us. See if we can help you. We might be able to appeal it for you, and we might be able to get you a higher rating, maybe even back pay. It all depends. Every case is different. With that said, please like this video, subscribe to the channel. I try to put out video and content that helps explain some of these concepts. Bring in the very confusing process to sort of the mainstream. So do click like, subscribe, share, what have you. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and maybe we'll make a video out of them. With that said, thanks a lot, and take care.